quite a few podcasts, so it's helpful, and I'm working on starting my own. It's just time. I'm like, I'm not sure if I have time to be honest, but
Yeah, I mean, podcasts are very, very time consuming. I was just writing down some last minute questions because I see that you seem to me when I look at your Instagram, you seem like a very, very busy woman to me.
yeah, yeah, to say the least. So I'm like, but I also really do enjoy the podcast, and I think they're the best way, like even for creating content and things along those lines. It's, just normal, genuine, authentic conversation. A lot of times things just come up and it's easy, shareable, relatable content. So I go back and forth between it. I'm like, I really want to do it, but then I'm like, I don't want to, take too much more of my time away with other stuff. So we'll see.
Well, that's true. I mean, when you do one thing, it does take time away from other things. And I was writing down some questions that I wanted to ask you because I see you're the founder of multiple things, and you're a best-selling author. So I wanted to touch base on all of those if you have the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. Sorry, I'm
So
just
what exactly do you do for a living? Let's start with that.
so I mean, for the past 4 years, I've worked in real estate.
Oh, you're an agent too. Wow.
So yeah. So I mean, I'm transitioning more time. Like that was my full-time job, and that was extremely time consuming. I worked for a land development company, so it was more of like a niche style of real estate than general real estate only. We did that, but we also sold land directly for the developers. And then now I myself and my partner, we have just bought Pilates studio. So we're developing that. And we actually bought three. So right now we have the first one we're developing, and then we're kind of on a development plan with the franchise for opening two and three more in the Charlotte area.
Oh, you're in Charlotte.
Hmm.
So are you a licensed agent or just an investor?
Licensed agent.
Oh, wow. And how long have you been a licensed agent now?
Since 2021. I've actually had my license in North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Oklahoma,
You're
which is
licensed in
like,
all of those states?
yeah.
Wow. Why did you get licensed in so many states?
Because for the land development company that I worked for, they had projects and properties in every single state. So in order, obviously, to sell property in those states, we had to be licensed. So I mean, now really the only one I'll be working is North Carolina, and then South Carolina. We're doing real estate as well, kind of in just this general area because we travel a ton for the development stuff. So now that we're not doing that, it's more just kind of like local.
Very interesting. But you're not licensed in New York yet.
No, not no. I mean, right now, I mean, with everything we're doing with the Pilates studios and just so much else going on, probably won't be licensed in any other states. South Carolina, maybe because we're right on that border of North
Uh,
Carolina, South Carolina, and like Fort Mill. And there's quite a bit of stuff that we'll be doing with the firm that we're with now down there. But other than that, no, no more
and I
states
heard
for right now.
Florida's great for real estate too.
I'm sorry, what?
I heard Florida's great for real estate too.
It is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have actually a handful of family down there. So.
Nice. All right. So let's so you're also the founder of 501(c)(3). What is that exactly?
So it's just that's a nonprofit. So the 501(c)(3) is like we're declared by the United States and the IRS that we are an actual nonprofit. So they're tax deductible donations.
Is that the real estate company 501(c)(3)?
Oh no, no, no. So that's my nonprofit. The 501(c)(3) is the nonprofit.
But what do you got? What do you do? What
I'm the owner of it. So I run it.
right.
That's completely separate from the real estate.
But what is that company about? What
Oh,
is
so move into words like what is the actual nonprofit about?
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what you're asking? Okay, sorry.
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Sorry.
so the mission of the Move Into Words, and if you like click on it, you'll see it. It's really all about cultivating a community for young professionals to thrive. So we do quarterly events. We started last year. This year, we're hopefully doing more events. But it's really about a workout for the body, workshop for the mind. So we do some sort of physical activity where we've done yoga, we've done HIIT, we've done boxing, and then we bring a motivational speaker to talk about kind of like a mental health topic, whether it's anxiety, we've done confidence, we've done emotional intelligence and awareness and relationships. So things kind of along those lines.
So it sounds like a sort of like a mental health self-improvement sort of nonprofit.
Yeah, so it's really all about like in terms of like the cultivating a community. So it's bringing young professionals together that really have a growth mindset and want to be a better version of themselves, and bringing all of them into a room to create a network, for support as well.
Yeah, which is exactly what young people need nowadays, and older people too. I'm 35, by the way. I don't know how old you are, but so it also says that you are the author of a book. Did you write a book?
I did.
Tell us
It was
about that.
published this year. It's called Always Squeezing Lemons. It was a bestseller the first week it was released on Amazon in two different categories. It's really all about pretty much self-development. The subtitle is Taking Responsibility to Define Your Own Success. And, so in like one other sentence, what the whole book really is about is when you realize you can be the cause, problem, and solution for everything in your life, your world changes. So it's that radical responsibility, mental shift of you're in full control. Your choices are your choices. And, a lot of times we think of all the negatives and the things in the future that could possibly happen. And the what ifs are usually that, what if I fail? What if this goes wrong? Rather than, well, what if I succeed? What if I'm much happier? So really kind of taking responsibility and being really authentic and diving into what you truly want and desire and making it happen.
Very interesting. And when did you come out with this book?
It was published in May.
Very, very interesting. All right. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the first topic. So I heard this term for the first time just a few weeks ago, internal locus of control. Do you know what that is?
Mm, Not necessarily, not
Yeah,
like
I
with
just
the
heard it for the
specific references.
I just heard it too. So internal locus of control is someone with an internal locus of control puts more blame and responsibility on themselves, and someone with an external locus of control puts more blame and responsibility on the world and on other
Mhm.
people. And it sounds to me like you have a very, very strong internal locus of control, and you tend to enjoy putting the not enjoy, but you tend to put the blame and responsibility on yourself rather than the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if we're blaming external things for, anything, I mean, that's we're not in control of everything externally, and we're just playing the victim role. And quite frankly, you're making an excuse. So that, self-accountability, the radical responsibility kind of mindset is yeah, if you screw up, take responsibility for it and figure out how to come out on top from it. So learning from the mistakes and yeah, I mean, I really don't have much tolerance for the victim role. It doesn't make sense to me.
Would you say that some things in life are other people's fault? Like, if you were to go outside today and get robbed, wouldn't that be
Mhm.
the other guy's fault?
Absolutely. I mean, for sure. Those are outside scenarios, but the thing that we always, no matter what, have control over is our response. So I mean, we can sit here and of course we're gonna be pissed off that that happened, but I mean, we can just stay pissed off or we can, figure out like other ways to come off on the other side of it. I mean, it's one of those things if we get hung up on situations like that for too long, it's just going to cause detriment in other areas of our lives. And, we can't waste too much time and energy on things outside of our control. It's really just focusing on our response and what is inside our control.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you believe that we should focus on what we can control and kind of ignore the things that we can't control.
Absolutely.
So one counter argument to that is that, we should process emotions, right?
Mhm.
So when you really think about it, right? Let's just say I were to go outside and get robbed, and let's just say I were to, think about it, and let's just say I were to think thoughts like, that's not fair, the world is not fair, that's not fair that I got robbed, that guy's an asshole, he shouldn't have done that. These are things that are out of my control, but at the same time, it's processing emotions, it's
Mhm.
processing what happened. So isn't the philosophy that we should only focus on what we can control somewhat contradictory to process emotions and process what happened?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think, fully ignoring it is the solution. Even like kind of how you said ignoring, I don't think that's really the word.
Uh,
I think it's just not letting it hindering us, is the more important part. And processing is super important. I mean, honestly, for years I had a hard time doing that. I've been an athlete my whole life, so physical activity has been a huge priority. But I always had that athlete mentality, rub some dirt on it, suck it up rather than actually processing. And a tool that's been really helpful for me to actually start processing things is journaling, which is how kind of the whole nonprofit was founded. I have journal prompts at the end of each chapter in my book. It's the one tool that I'd say has really helped drive any sort of success I've had. So it's definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for, you have to process stuff, but there's a big difference in processing things and blaming stuff. So if we're constantly blaming or we're just getting stuck in this one thing that happened, if we got robbed and then we're still talking about it a month later
yeah.
and it's still affecting our lives, again, at that point, it's affecting other areas of your life too. It's hindering you from moving on or, recovering that stuff. So yeah, not ignoring it. I don't think that's the right word. Like I said, not allowing those type of things that truly are out of our control and, horrible circumstances hinder our lives. If that makes more sense.
Yeah, yeah, I see. So what I'm hearing is that, we should process our emotions, but we shouldn't let negative events hinder, and we shouldn't wallow, and we shouldn't lay around and have the victim mentality because it simply doesn't help. So
Mhm.
this to me, it sort of begs a very, very important question, which is where is the line between processing and wallowing? Like, where is that line between like we should process what happened and we should wallow in pity? Where is that line?
I mean, I think it's different for each circumstance, each situation, each person. Obviously, we all handle things very differently. We all have different pain tolerances. We all have different experiences that have, brought us to where we are now and where we're living currently.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, and that's kind of, again, that radical responsibility of, acknowledging when, okay, if I'm still like holding on to this one negative scenario that happened to me a month ago, and it is impacting my life. So it comes down really that self-awareness level. Then yeah, at that point, you suck it up. Like stop living in that situation, right? Like move on from it. And I'm not saying that, there are times and things that like it takes longer to get over. And that's okay. It's not every situation is going to be something that you can just snap your fingers and move on from. But by just constantly pointing the finger or making excuses for situations, again, that does keep you in that negative mindset. It doesn't allow you to, think of the bright side or think of the silver lining, because there are silver linings in everything. You have to be willing to look for certain, a lot of them, a lot of the times.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are silver linings in some sort of situation at any moment.
Yeah, I strongly agree. I think that there are silver linings in any situation pretty much. The first one that comes to mind when I was like 26 years old, I went to Hawaii with my family and I lost my wallet in Hawaii. And I just got so, so, so much love from my family. I got so much love and support from them. That was a silver lining. And then someone ended up mailing the wallet back to me. So I do agree that there's silver lining in pretty much every negative scenario. And I have sort of like a more like nuanced and sort of like uh not really I would say unique view on processing and suppressing. I think that we have to have a healthy balance of processing and suppressing. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's sort of like, for example, if I got robbed or attacked, whatever the case, I would process what happened and I would think thoughts, that are not necessarily in my control, like those guys are assholes, those guys, I want to punch them in the face, this and that. But at the same time, I am a believer in, sort of suppressing and sort of like, okay, move on to the next thing. So I think that like I think it's important to talk about that like sort of, dichotomy and that sort of like alternating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like I said, every individual is really different.
Mhm.
And again, every situation is super different. I mean, hopefully, I mean, somebody at some point is going to get robbed. I mean, in the whole world, somebody's probably getting robbed right now, right? But it really does just come down to the situation and being self-aware enough to realize again, if one situation is causing, more negativity in your life, then cut it off. Figure out how to process it rather than, continuing to project.
Yeah, so to me, you come across as a very, very strong and keep it pushing and confident woman. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. It's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah, and that's the vibes that I'm getting. So tell me, because a lot of people nowadays are struggling with confidence, right? Tell me where does that confidence come from?
Well, kind of like reflecting like very briefly on kind of like my story and how I ever ended up to where I'm at now. In 2020, obviously COVID hit everyone. We all kind of have those crazy stories. I was in an unhappy marriage. I was in a job I was kind of capped out in, and I knew it was time to move on just from everything. So completely started over, didn't have any direction at all, had no money, and was just going to be like, I'll figure all this out. And so I did. I really think obviously for me, I made that big choice, right? I could either chose to stay unhappy or I could have made the choice to leave, and I did. And there's a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of heartbreak in that.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, like I knew I'd come out on top. And choosing to do the hard things over and over again definitely builds confidence. I think that's really important because I mean, we all are faced with situations. I think also a lot of us, we're chasing the picture perfect life, which I was in the past. We're focused on, societal expectations and, checking boxes for other people rather than designing and creating and checking off our own,
Yep.
whether even if it is obviously against the status quo and maybe not the popular choice. But if it's meant for you and it's something that you're truly passionate about and it's going to live out through your purpose and do it. I mean, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have haters. No matter how great you're doing, whether how bad you're doing, people are going to have something to say about it. So living to please other people is definitely not the way to do it. And I
Yeah.
do think we naturally get caught up in that. I mean, a lot of our lives, I was actually just on a podcast recently, we were talking about, connection. And we're so connected, more connected than ever with social media, but we're also more disconnected than ever because we're just so in our phones and everything's virtual.
Mhm.
So I think really kind of like regrouping back to that and just, finding the group of people you need to be around, being, super involved in, what you truly, truly want and being a little bit selfish before you can be selfless.
Yeah, so you just gave me a lot to respond to. You covered a lot of topics in a very, very short period of
I
time. And
tried. I tried. I was like, how do
yeah.
I summarize this massive amount
No,
of
because it sounds
information?
to me like, yeah, it sounds to me like you had a massive transformation. And COVID wasn't that long ago. It was only 4 or 5 years ago. It really wasn't that long ago. So tell us, how did you go from the bottom to where you are now so fast? How did you do that?
Definitely a lot of just self-awareness. I mean, there's so many things involved in that. As I kind of touched on journaling, it being in my book, I think I touched on that a little bit. I'm a huge advocate of journaling. And that's where a lot of clarity, a lot of healing has come through for me. I really started to process, what I wanted, who I was, and what purpose I really felt like I should be living out. So really just staying authentic and true to that. I know that's like kind of, basic, but at the same time, you know, I I became very clear on what I wanted, and I'm not the type of person that, is going to say something and then not figure out how to make it happen. I'll put the work in, I'll put the dedication in, I'll fail and figure it out. So it's really being just committed to yourself and what you want. I mean, what my life and what I define as success may not be exactly what, and it definitely probably isn't what other people think and believe. And that's like a lot of the main message that I talk about in terms of building confidence, in terms of building, success for yourself. It's really getting true with who you are because no one can tell you 1, 2, 3 step and then you're going to be happy or 1, 2, 3 step you're going to be successful. That's kind of what we're engulfed with in terms of, the sales pitch on lines and stuff like that. But that's just not how life works. Don't be wrong. There's tools and resources and things that are very applicable. Like again, that's where journaling is to me so universal. But at the same time, not everyone lives and breathes and does the same thing at all. Like we're all very different, right? We're all the same, but we're all extremely different. We all operate differently. We all want different things. But I think we're also very hindered still by societal's expectations. If we get really deep on it, like what does yes and no really mean? What does success and failure really mean? It's all things that we give a definition to. So why can't we define it for ourselves?
Yeah, it's a construct to a certain extent, but I noticed that one thing that you've said several times is that we're all different, and you like to emphasize the fact that we're all different and we all have different wants and different needs, and I think that's really, really, really important to talk about because you can take like pretty much any concept, and my answer to most questions and most problems is everyone's different and different things work for different people, and so I really like how much you emphasize that concept because like for example like happiness, like a lot of people ask me or just in general, what is the key to happiness? And to me the best answer is different things work for different people. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a broad question.
Mhm.
And again, when it comes down to it, like identifying what these things are, I think there's tools, which again, how journaling to me is very universal. But yeah, no, I mean, there's no real cookie cutter
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no one,
Mhm.
two, three step to these larger, grander purpose things that we
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, from where I was in 2020 to where I am now, I mean, there was a lot of healing. There was a lot of screwing up. There was a lot of mistakes, but there was also a lot of wins that I celebrated. There was a lot of, more, there was heartbreak. There
Yeah.
was everything, but there was always also myself committing to stay true to who I was. And I think that's the most important thing when we really, but we have to identify what that is. I think a
Yeah.
lot of us are just going through the motions of life rather than truly living. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate. It's, but when you're strong enough to commit to, identifying what you want and then actually doing it, you become a force to be reckoned with because there are a lot of people, most people not doing that, but it always ends up working out somehow. It might not be how you envisioned it in your mind. I mean, I can tell you what I'm doing right now and everything. Like if you would ask me this 5 years ago, I've been like, you're crazy. But at the same time, it always works out, but you just have to be committed to that.
What do you think is stopping things from working out for people? Because there are so many people who are so far from where they want to be and who are you just, constantly taking L's. What do you think is stopping them from reaching their goals?
I mean, number one is definitely your mindset. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't, take the actions, if you're not staying committed or disciplined, I mean, you're never going to get there, right? But I think it's also important to acknowledge, again, we're so swarmed with these super overinflated success stories, like, went from this to here, right? I mean, I could give you 1,000 hook lines for my story, but no one knows like the back end stuff. No one knows people's financial situations. No one knows, like the type of responsibilities they have. So I mean, I think we're so used to those like little quick catchphrases, and I call it like the microwave society that we just, we expect it right here, right now, and that's what we absorb daily. But I think a lot of the times it just seems so far away. We're seeing these like instant grab pulls and like hope for success immediately, but then you're in a job that you hate and you're making no money and then you want to be a multimillionaire. Well, how do you fill those gaps, right? You got to figure out different ways. And every situation, again, kind of going back to the point, like it's different. But if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have the right mindset and you're not being realistic with the tools that you currently have, then you're already going to be super far. Now, if you want to get somewhere and you're far from there, start taking the steps to get there, right? Like if you want to, you know, again, you're making no money, you're not having your job, and you want to be a multimillionaire. Well, you better start putting yourself in a room with multimillionaires,
Yeah.
right? So it's just starting, taking small steps though is really important.
Does money bring happiness?
Um, it's a great question. Money doesn't buy ultimate happiness, but it definitely buys you things that make you happy. I mean, I can't sit here and be like, and I mean, I have a nonprofit, I have a book, which is all like focused on contribution. It's not money driven essentially. But I can tell you right now, without money, you can't do any of it. Like if I didn't have money, I couldn't write a book. If I didn't have money, I want to start a nonprofit. If I didn't have money, I would be opening 3 Pilates studios. So I do think it's very important. I'm somebody that has always been driven by money, but it's not because I just want a bunch of money and to go buy a bunch of designer purses. Don't get me wrong, I love nice things. Um, but I know the more money I have, the more contribution I can make. So I think, money does truly amplify a person. It amplifies who you really deeply, truly are. Um, so yeah, I mean, it definitely buys you things that make you be. I think it's a very, actually, it is absolutely a very important thing. Anybody that says money isn't important, I wouldn't listen to be honest, to be
Yeah,
completely blunt.
it's
Yeah,
so it's a really big pet peeve of mine when rich people, but especially celebrities say like money doesn't bring happiness. Like that is a big pet peeve of mine. I said it in my last podcast, and I am a strong believer that money brings happiness. But I think that a lot of people who say that and who have that mentality tend to have a long list of problems that money can't fix. Like a
absolutely.
mental health issues, like if you're schizophrenic or if you're bipolar, money can only do so much. So I think a lot of people who have that mentality that money doesn't bring happiness tend to have a lot of issues that money can't fix. So you said a word that really stood out to me, which was contribution. What you said was, with more money, I can have more contribution. So my question to you is, why is contribution important to you?
Yeah, I mean, quickly to kind of hit on like, to me, money is a tool. It's a tool, and if it's used appropriately, it can make you happy. It can make a lot of other people happy. If it's not used correctly and it's not used appropriately, then yeah, what like, it's just another thing, right? It's all about having like the correct mindset and relationship with money. Um, I'm sorry, repeat the other question.
The question was why is contribution, because you mentioned the word
Yeah,
contribution.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why is that
Yes.
important to you?
I mean, and this is kind of a good way to even kind of go off of the money realm too. I mean, if you're just making a ton of money and you're not helping other people, like I just, I've gotten a lot more reward from helping more people than just receiving a big paycheck. I mean, for example, I was the top sales producer for the land development company, they're one of the largest in the Southeast, and won the Rolex, won the top producer title. It was awesome. But I've received more gratification by hearing, a random stranger reach out and said, "Hey, I read your book and it was life-changing for me." That made me feel better than, winning that. So of course, but in order to be able to do those type of things, making money is obviously very important. But, you know, contribution, I mean, I just feel like I have messages. I love meeting people. I love working with people. I love seeing people improve. I love growth. I love personal growth, but I love seeing personal growth elevate in other people too. You don't start a nonprofit, you don't write a book unless you're passionate about helping other people. And I also, it becomes deeply personal for me because I never want to see people stuck and feeling the way that I did, And I mean, I know there are people out there like that. I know, if I had the book that I wrote when I was in my situation, I think it would have been very helpful. So I think it's, overcoming certain things, and you do want the best for others and to see them, flourish in the ways that they want to as well.
Kayla, would you say that you're a happy person?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because to me, you come across as very happy and very confident. And I wanted to ask you, is happiness a choice?
I don't think, I mean, again, it's so broad, but
Mhm.
I think happiness is the result of your choices, if that makes more sense, because like even like your habits, happiness is a result of your choices and habits. If I'm just drinking every day and not, taking care of my body and doing things that are mentally healthy for me, like no, I'm not gonna be happy. I'm not gonna feel good. So happiness really is a result of how you structure your day, what your habits are, who you spend your time with, what you're doing, what you're investing in. So it's not just so subjective. But I do make mindful choices. I choose who I'm with. I choose who I spend my time with. I choose what I do daily. And that's where like really truly like life is just a bunch of choices. And the choices you're making are probably either leading to happiness or not.
Yeah, so I definitely agree that life, a very, very, very large percentage of life is choices. But, I would also say that a lot of it is also, luck and even the way that we were raised, like so for example, we all know people with really messed up childhoods. I know
Mhm.
a bunch of people with really messed up childhoods and it affects them today. It affects their choices today. A lot of them have are diagnosed with ADHD or bipolar and what is your response to people who might say, that life is a lot of luck and it's not 100% decisions. It's not 100% based on choice, and that life is a lot of luck. What is your response to that?
I definitely think luck plays a role, but I don't think it's, you can get lucky, but if you kind of screw your luck too many times, then that it's not going to work. Like for example, I write in my book, I received the opportunity to work for the land development company, and I was lucky to be able to receive it because it was somebody that I knew, like I had a close relationship with him as my godfather, but it was an opportunity that was given to me. If I didn't put myself in that position to receive that opportunity and then capitalize on that opportunity, then that luck meant nothing. So, I mean, not everything is luck. Don't get me wrong, luck is important. I mean, there's by chance you're in certain areas, certain times, but you're the one that puts yourself in those situations and then makes those choices, or you don't. So it kind of does tie back into the choice situation as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, luck definitely plays a role, but it's not the end all be all. And also if you're sitting there and like is like, I'm just not lucky and has that super negative narrative. Well, no, you're never going to be lucky. You know, like you're literally cursing yourself by saying that or believing that. So I think it's just really just focusing on you and doing what you need to.
Yeah, I mean, some of us were given much better hands at birth, and some of us, some of us were born in, developing countries, third world countries. I went to the Philippines 2023 for the first time, and there were so many starving children going through the garbages, and I mean, it's really hard to look at people, especially children, and say, it's your fault or it's you're there because of your bad decisions, especially when it comes to children. So I feel like, when it comes to kids in particular, I feel like, luck is probably the number one reason why kids are happy or sad as opposed to adults. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, every situation again is so different, right? And I think what's really important too, again, in my book, I write the chapter, it's chapter 4 is called Your Trauma is Your Trauma.
Uh,
And really, your biggest problem is your biggest problem.
mhm.
Relating our problems to kids that are in Haiti and growing up in, or did you say we were in the Philippines that you
Yep.
went to?
Okay. Yep.
And you're just seeing terrible situations and like life really just being lived in ways that we can't even begin to comprehend. We can't even begin to relate with. And if we sit here and we compare our problems to that, well, then we have no problems, right? But that's also not true. We do have problems. And then if we don't address our problems or process them, then we're going to be, hurting other people at the same time, right? And only causing detriment to ourselves. So, in terms of like making impact, I mean, I think that's where, the people that, do feel very deeply about that and making more of an impact, do everything they can to help those people. But it starts with you and like really realizing like where your story is, like what mission is. I mean, we all can't help everybody, at the end of the day. But I think if we all really dig a little bit deeper and like understand like who we are and really what our purpose is, because I do truly believe, even though we all are different, we all have different stories, we all have different things that make us happy, we all are here for a divine purpose and a reason. But it is our responsibility to kind of tap into that. And we all have different, desires, and we also have different things that like really pull at our heartstrings. Um, but comparing where we are to certain areas that we have no comprehension of, like no ability to even begin to understand, is also unfair to ourselves. But doing what we can and being the best version of ourselves to possibly be able to help people in those situations is absolutely in our control, and I think absolutely our duty.
Kayla, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in life?
I mean, really, I just want everyone to be living the best and most authentic
Mhm.
versions of themselves possible. Not feeling trapped in a way that they have to be just going through the motions, being confident, making those decisions for themselves. But also really, I'm a huge and get in-person connective person. That's how Moving Towards really started with the nonprofit, is creating that community for, young professionals that have that growth mindset to come together and really find their network. So expanding that is a huge mission of mine. But even with the Pilates studio, we have a huge plan for developing those and just making people the best versions of themselves. So
You sound very passionate about helping people, especially young people. Is that safe to say?
yeah, I mean, I would say my message really resonates heavily, mostly with younger professionals. Now, not to say, I mean, gosh, even with my book, I've had people in their, later 50s reach out and be like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. It's one of those things that's, the target audience in terms of age range is going to be younger professionals, really anywhere from like, teens, higher teens to 40s.
Mhm.
But if you're just, everyone has different changes in their life, so if you're going through radical change and you kind of need that extra understanding, like my book definitely is very impactful and helpful for that.
Yeah, so to me, you sound like someone who knows what you want. You have it all planned out. You have it all figured out. You're very successful. You've overcome a lot of challenges, from divorce to, maybe being too hard on yourself to being broke. You sound like someone who has survived and overcome many, many obstacles. And now you're in a much happier and healthier and confident position. Is there something today that you're currently dealing with, or something today that you're currently not so happy about?
No, I mean, I think it's a daily up and down. This past year has been a lot of change, a lot of kind of situations that, I didn't wasn't really clear on, and then have been able to develop clarity over honestly time. So I wouldn't say I'm really struggling necessarily with anything right now. I do think, one thing I didn't realize was healing was a much longer process than I ever
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah.
So, for if I hadn't written my book, I think I would still be dealing with a lot of stuff. That was the most therapeutic, most healing thing that also like really like came out very vulnerably and raw and is super relatable. But yeah, I didn't realize how long that was. And so I think like kind of coming out on the other side, now I'm just enjoying and kind of slowing down, really prioritizing, my own well-being more than I ever have. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in a good place, but I couldn't have said that even a year ago, you know. I was dealing with a lot of, my own kind of internal demons and things that I just hadn't really processed before.
Are you comfortable with talking about those internal demons?
Yeah, sure.
So help us understand what internal demons were you dealing with?
I mean, I think I had a lot of still self-forgiveness to go for myself. With like my past relationship, I knew I shouldn't have gotten married and I still did. So I caused a lot of harm to, people that I care about, put other people in situations that it just, you know, there's it's so much to dive into. It was one of those things that just never should have happened, for many different reasons. And I knew that, but I just wasn't really strong enough in that position. It was just like, okay, found out some things before the wedding, and it was like we got to go through with it. But that carried on for 3 years, and I wasn't really true to myself. And then I really didn't cope well with a lot of things. I would turn to drinking or, seeing people that I shouldn't be. And I just found myself devaluing myself even more. So until I really just was like, okay, done with this, done with turning outside or externally and just focusing on, my own health and well-being. It wasn't until then that I really kind of got through it.
Yeah, so what I heard was that you kind of knew that you shouldn't get married, but you kind of forced yourself to do it. What was like, where did that pressure come from? Where did that pressure of forcing yourself to do it? Where did that come from?
Well, so I was with my ex for 5 years prior to us getting married, and then we were together for three more after that. So it was 8 years total. I mean, and I think I hear this often from a lot of people that are kind of in a relationship that they're just comfortable in. They're like, oh, well, I've already spent 5 years. I don't want to start over again.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, okay, you're 25 years old, right? So you're the 5 years you want to sacrifice for another 50 plus,
Right,
right?
right.
And I mean, I get it. I was totally the same way. But yeah, no, I think it just is super, super important to kind of like really understand exactly where you're at. And I definitely just felt that pressure. Like I just felt like that was the next step. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to get married. Oh, I'm supposed to have kids. I'm supposed to do these things. And I realized like all these things I was doing, I didn't want. I just felt, it was the next step, right? I mean, from kids, we're in school, we're constantly following structure. And then, we get out of college and the next step, you know, is to get married, have children, and have a
Yeah.
normal job and all these things. And I was like, I don't want any of this, you know? And so until I like really, was like, okay, I don't know exactly what I want, but I know everything that I'm doing is not what I want, was until I was really able to kind of overcome that. But definitely, forgiving myself for just living how I knew I shouldn't be, but was just kind of like numb and going through the motions. And I don't think I handled it very well at first. I think it was just so much change and so much going on that I didn't even know what was going on at the same time. So
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, this is all of our first times on Earth. You like you can't expect your 20, 25-year-old self to know what to do. We this you've never been married before this. This was your first marriage, right? And we have to forgive ourselves for our mistakes or because we,
mhm.
we can't expect ourselves, especially our young selves, to know what to do. And I wouldn't even call it a mistake because you learned a lot. You got, that you got a lot out of your system. You got that desire to get married out of your system. And I'm also willing to bet that, your age probably pressured you like, oh, I'm going to be 30 soon, this and that. I'm sure that that was part of the pressure too, right?
Well, I was really young, so I just turned 30 in September. So when I got married, I was 23, 22, 23. So I was really young. And it just but I grew up in the South, it's down there. It was definitely kind of like the next thing. So the external pressure, but I mean, my family never was like, "Oh, you gotta get married." It's something I made up in my mind, but it was also, the structure that like I kind of grew up in. It's just the next thing, the next thing. And I've definitely completely shifted and I focus more on the daily. I work on being as present as possible. Don't get me wrong, a million miles an hour, but at the same time, I do focus on the daily progress rather than just seeking the next big win. I get anxious when things are exciting and coming up. By all means, there's no reason that we shouldn't. But I definitely try to be more present and stay a little more grounded too.
So it sounds like before you weren't so present in the moment before.
But no, I mean, I got to a point where I felt like I was just numb, kind of going through the motions. I didn't really want to be present because I didn't really know what I was, like everything I was doing was just so, I found myself very stuck, is the best way to put it. So,
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds to me like before you were suppressing emotions and you were
for
suppressing
sure,
thoughts, and you
absolutely.
kind of like, maybe the thought of leaving him kind of creeped into your head, but then you kind of pushed it down and you kind of
Absolutely.
ignored it, and that you kind of did that on a regular basis, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And that was, with the whole journaling thing, I thought it was the stupidest idea. I truly did. And then after, all that happened, it was in 2020. I was bouncing around having to try to figure out my life. And my sister was the one that told me, she's like, you really should start journaling. And I did. And again, it was definitely my gateway, my opening tool for starting to process things. So I did a lot of processing over the past 4 years.
Yeah, well, what I would say is that, I mean, even though I don't journal, what I would imagine is that when you journaled, you what it did was it helped you organize your thoughts. And when you journal, you're not suppressing because you're writing and you can't suppress and write at the same time. So what I would imagine is that it helped you process. And then did you show those journals to anybody, or did you just keep them to yourself?
Oh no, absolutely not. I did definitely when I started writing my book, I, reflected on a lot of them. Just to kind of bring full circle after 3 years of pretty much chaos. It was really cool though, because, when I was like, I want to write a book, I was again broke, didn't know what I was doing. And to read from when I first started kind of like writing about the idea of wanting to write a book and then everything that happened in between, it's literally like the manifestations through the journal completely came to life. So, not only is it such a good practice on a daily basis, it definitely is an amazing way of record keeping and is really cool to be able to go back and see, on paper what those feelings were and how well they are just translated by doing that.
And do you want to share like some of your thoughts in the journal? Do you want to share some of that?
In my journal? No one, no one reads
You
my
don't-
journal. No,
Right.
absolutely not. But no, I mean, I think, as a practical way for other people, I first started with just like keeping it simple. For me, I enjoy prompts, but it was better for me to just kind of like brain dump. So I always say like be vulnerable with the pages and just write what comes to your mind, but really, really be honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you're not gonna be able to be honest with anything that you're truly wanting. But I also think just an easy practice, and I always did this and I still do it. I don't necessarily write it down. It's become a practice of mine, is writing down 3 grateful thoughts. So if you
Mm.
want to kind of get into the habit of journaling, I think that's just a great way to start doing it, putting pen to paper. It takes less than a minute a lot of the times. And it can be the same thing over and over, but it's interesting as you do it, one morning you wake up and be like, oh, I'm extra grateful for this today, So I think it's good practice. Just get started.
If you could talk to your 21, 22-year-old self today, what would you tell her?
don't stay focused on what you truly want. Don't feel like you have to fall into the trap of what you feel like you have to do. I really kind of sum it up as don't check the boxes of society, design, create, and check your own boxes. And when I've spoken to, colleges and I've mentored younger students, that's really what I tell them. I'll ask them kind of their situations because a lot of college students are just very confused on like where to go next, right? They're like, well, what's my next step? I feel like I should do this or that. And I'm like, what do you want to do? A lot of times we don't really ask ourselves that question, or we don't have the confidence to ask ourselves that question. And I think that's really where I was. I was confident, but I also was a little scared of the answer. And I think until we can kind of overcome like and understand that a lot of the times the things that we want may seem delusional in the moment, but if we never turn those dreams into our realities or even attempt to try, then we're just going to stay stuck, you know? So definitely, chase the big dreams and do what you want.
Yeah, well, another problem with kids is they don't have the experience to know what they want. Like they don't know themselves. They don't know what it's like to work a 9 to 5 job, or what it's like to be an entrepreneur, or what it's like to get up, and go to work to a boss that you hate, and what annoying coworkers are like. The problem with kids is they don't know what they want because they don't have the experience. So,
For sure.
what I would tell them is, just try different things. And, the point that I would emphasize is don't expect to know what you want anytime soon because you're
hmm
young, you lack experience. I didn't know I wanted to be a real estate broker until I was 34, and I'm
hmm
35 now. So what I would tell them is, try different things. And don't you're too young to know what you want now. Like if you are, you're lucky. If you know what you want now for the rest of your life, you're lucky. But you can't really expect a child, a 17, 18-year-old, to know what they want at such a young age. Kayla, how are we on time?
we're fine. I mean, yeah, I'm good.
Because I do like to delve into people's childhoods, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have probably about like 20 more minutes or so.
Are you comfortable though? Are you comfortable delving into your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything super crazy with my childhoods.
So how was your childhood? Was it good? Was it rough?
No, it was good. I mean, my dad traveled often. So my mom really kind of raised my sister and I, full time, but my dad was very present. Loves us unconditionally, but I really didn't form too much of a relationship with him personally until I was in my early 20s.
And how did that affect you?
I mean, I think it's something that, over time it kind of unpacks. It's not like he was absent. It's not like he was missing. He just, he was supporting the family financially. And I definitely saw them they overcame a lot, especially in '08. The economy crash definitely heavily affected our family. So in terms of a comeback story and resilience,
Mhm.
I've definitely witnessed it firsthand. So I think, even going through my situation, seeing, my family really kind of start over and come back the way that they did, I was like, well, of course I can do it. I think that subconsciously I didn't really realize that until later. But my family has always been my number one supporters. They've always been super supportive of me, myself, my sister. We have a great relationship. So going through everything, having them to turn to no matter what has been super impactful. And I 110% recognize that not everybody has that. Which is also why, even moving towards is super, super important to me, cultivating that community and network for people that maybe don't have those same resources. Because I know for a fact, if I didn't have the support that I have had, not only from my family, but really close friends, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you had an overall pretty good childhood, that your mom was very supportive, your sister was very supportive. Do you have any brothers or any other sisters, or just one sister?
Just my younger sister.
But it sounds like your father wasn't too present. He was so busy working, and was there a part of you that like kind of wanted dad to be home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was, my sister was definitely younger, like more of a daddy's girl than I was. I was definitely more of a mommy's girl growing up. But then, as I got older, my dad and I now we have an amazing relationship, and
Nice.
I idolize him. I respect him to the ends of the earth. And so it's been really cool to be able to like, get to know each other. And of course, when you're a young girl and a teenager and going through, puberty and hormones and everything, like you have a relationship with your dad, but it's not the same, right? So now, like my sister and I being adults, even having a relationship with my mom, my dad is very different than, of course, when we were kids. But yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we've been raised 100% with unconditional love, and it's something that we are both my sister and I are very grateful for. We do recognize that, where we're both at, and the success we're having isn't just because we we've had a lot of hardships to overcome, but at the same time we definitely have the support you know mentally. The one thing though, my parents have never been like, oh, like we'll give you anything you want. That is not how that has worked. We've worked for everything that we've ever wanted, and they've taught us that, hard work is the only way you get what you want. And so, I mean, by no means are they going to make me live in a box if I'm just, like have nothing, which is not the trajectory that we're going, but they raised us to not be doing that. But at the same time, we've never received a handout. So
Yeah, so to me, what I'm hearing is that you are a very, very resilient and independent woman. You're strong, you know what you want, you're ambitious, you're hardworking, you're successful. You have it all. And so I'm just wondering, is there a part of you that is kind of tired of being independent and kind of wants, a man or a husband that kind of, takes care of you and that lets you be your feminine, your side that's kind of exhausted. Is there a part of you that's like that?
I definitely felt that way, but I have a partner now, and we're actually business partners. So we were best friends before we ever started dating, and we kind of, talked through like business stuff before. And so starting off on the grounds of best friends and then, going into a romantic relationship, it was kind of weird at first because we were just so close, and then,
Yeah.
kind of like diving in and figuring that out was interesting. But he's amazing. And it's when you kind of say like tapping into your feminine energy. For a while, I always felt like I was playing both roles. I knew I could do it all. But it was funny because I was talking to my one girlfriend and I was telling her, I was like, I'm Googling feminine energy because I'm like, I like know I need to like tap into it. And like I'm not really sure exactly
Uh,
what that is. And she was just cracking up. She's like,
uh,
oh my God. She's like, you're one of the smartest people I know and you're
yeah.
Googling feminine energy. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely felt exhausted and worn out. And it's interesting because we've been dating for about a year now, and it's felt so easy. And I really think what's really important and a testament to speak to in any person in relationship, like if your bigger picture, if your values and your morals don't align, like it's just never going to work. No matter how much you love somebody, it doesn't. You have to I mean, you have to have those things in a line. And then, deep love continues to grow because you guys are growing together. I mean, it's so cool to me that we're able to start a business together. It's so cool to me we're able to communicate on that level. And, we're both very independent people. We don't need each other, but we choose each other. And I really do believe with relationships, they should, they're hard work, but they shouldn't feel hard and they shouldn't feel like work. Life's hard. Your partner shouldn't make your life harder, and we all have to work, so it shouldn't feel like work either. So your partner really should just elevate your life. It should add value to your life. You shouldn't rely on them. You can rely on them for certain things, right? There are obviously expectations that you have when you're in a very committed relationship. But at the same time, it's not like, oh my God, I die without you, right? Even though you kind of feel that way when you really love somebody, we say that. But at the same time, it's more about elevating your life and just being the best version of yourself. That person really does amplify you.
Yeah, I mean, people who do absolutely rely on their partner, it's called codependency
Hmm.
when you can't survive without them. And I think that the healthiest mentality is what you said, which is, to want them but to not need them, because now you're not so dependent on them just in case they do end up leaving or something happens or, and then, obviously, everyone dies at some point, right? So not to get too morbid, but The
Yeah,
point
I
I'm trying
mean
to
it's
make is
true. It's a reality we all face.
it's the reality, and like it's. I think that it is a very healthy mentality to view relationships and marriage as a bonus rather than as something that you absolutely need to be happy. Otherwise, it's codependency, and then now the thing about codependent partners is they can be very, very exhausting. They can be very exhausting to deal with. They tend to require a lot of money, time, and energy. But you sound like someone who's very independent and who knows what you want and who has a partner, but is not super, super codependent on him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, you can't, you're not going to be happy in that situation. Like it's just going to be toxic. I mean, no relationship's perfect. There's absolutely not one. And if somebody again sits there and tries to say that, and it's not somebody you should be listened to for relationship advice. They're not being honest. But, at the end of the day, like it's overcoming the things together that is that are like truly important rather than creating situations that totally are a lot of times arguments can just transpire because of your own mind and things that like false scenarios, right? So yeah, for sure.
So, Kayla, what do you have to say to those women who have that mentality of be strong, be independent, you don't need a man, get your own money, be a boss bitch, you don't need a man. What is your message to those women? What is your
Well,
message?
I totally was that. I honestly was like, I'm not dating anybody till I'm at least 35, like, or like truly dating somebody, like I'll just do my own thing, like screw this. And so I get it. Like I totally get it. I thought a partner was going to hold me back because that's really all I knew. I only saw myself not thrive in past relationships. I saw it be a hindrance than rather than like a boost up. But
Traction.
yeah, exactly. But then, I think there's a really important part about like the law of attraction too. Like you have to be the person that, attracts the right
Yep.
person to come
Yep.
into your life and be in the right place at the right, not like the right place at the right time, but in the right place for yourself to be
Yep.
able to bring somebody into your life that's on the same wavelength, right?
Have to qualify for them.
Exactly. I mean, like I was not the person that would be in a healthy relationship a year ago, And so when I found him, or when we decided to obviously like, you know, date, I was still very resistant to it because I was like in my mind, I had, again, strong-minded, independent, boss bitch vibes, like, not dating anybody. And then I realized I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I do thrive in partnership and I know that about myself. I'm just like exiling it because it's past experiences, past traumas that I'm letting affect my current situation. And, I realized that he only adds value to my life. Like he's only going to make me better. We're going to be able to do the things that I want to do times two because there's two of us, right? But we have very aligned goals. We have very aligned values. We want the same thing. So I think, it's really important. I mean, don't get me wrong, like be an independent boss bitch and everything, but don't hinder yourself or opportunities of men that, maybe just want to make you better and are like totally cool with that. I mean, you're not going to be able to date a guy that does just want to have a submissive female because there are men like that. Like they just want,
Yep.
women to stay at home and cook and clean and do that. And there are women that want to do that, and that is
Yep.
totally fine, right? But
Yep.
if you are, more that independent, you're an entrepreneur, you can't date a guy like that. Like it's just not gonna fit. So
Are you a feminist, Kayla?
I obviously believe in like, strong women power and everything like that, but I don't think feminist is going to be the word for it at all. Because I do also believe in the male and female roles. I do believe, the men are men. Like let a man be a man. Don't, really degrade them. And I think our society has really done that with like too much of an over, radical feminist movement to a certain extent. I do believe in equality and female rights and, we are strong, but also men can do things that females can't do, and then females can do things that men can't do. So really just like acknowledging those roles and not taking one extreme to the next. Anything that's radical is just irrational to me. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, no, in terms of a direct feminist, no, I would not say that. Obviously super into female empowerment, but not radical feminism.
You're not man hating. You don't hate men.
No, I love men. They're
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah,
I think that they must stay in their roles. If we can't keep just degrading men and just because for women to feel better about themselves. And I think that is we have to go back a little bit more traditional. We really do. But not super traditional, obviously. I mean, coming from somebody who is an entrepreneur, who is very independent, you know, but we're taking it to a new extreme where we're sliding men out of roles they totally should be in. And now they're all also still, I mean, I've worked in a very male-dominated industry, and there's some like disgusting aspects of that for sure. So I've seen and I've felt both sides, but as an overarching kind of theme, I'm seeing a lot of kind of transition out of that like real masculine roles that I think is super important to stay.
what is a masculine role?
I mean, I think everyone again also like kind of identifies that a little bit differently, but I mean, like you think of like men of the house, it's not even necessarily financially. It's just that they are like we have different makeups. Females are more nurturing and caring. Men are, not necessarily the caregivers, but they're the protectors. And we can't reverse that. We can't feel like we need to be, kind of when you ask me about tapping into my feminine energy, like I don't want to be the protector and also the caregiver and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's really identifying kind of where that stays in.
Yeah, it's really ironic because the whole goal of, let's say, the radical feminists, and not all feminists are radical. I also learned that not all feminists are radical,
No, no,
but
no, no. Like let's not like mistake that because that's not at all what I'm saying. I
right.
was just clarifying in terms of yeah, like that's absolutely not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah, I really like what you said before, which is that you said anything radical is irrational. I really, really like that. I think that, that tells me that we're on the same page when it comes to pretty much everything. But it's so what I was gonna say is it's so ironic because, when you look at the radical feminists, and I know a few, their goal is to empower and help women, but it's so ironic because at the end of the day, they're actually hurting women. Like the way that they put down men and the way that they constantly say you don't need a man, you don't need a man, you don't need a man. That's hurting women at the end of the day, isn't it?
It is. No, and I completely agree. It's transitioning our minds out of the fact that we don't need one. But then ultimately a lot of those women want a man, right? But then like we wonder like why don't we have a man? It's we're telling them that they're not good enough essentially, right? And so again I am all for women empowerment. I do believe in equality, but we can't again degrade the roles of men to to bring females up either. So that's totally where I stand on that topic.
Who should pay for the first date?
Oh gosh. I mean, I definitely go with kind of the male,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
I think, but it also depends on the situation. I don't know.
right.
I've always been the worst at that.
Uh,
I would feel uncomfortable a lot of the times,
mm,
like not paying.
mm.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, like just let them pay if they want to pay, So I always felt kind of weird though. I was like, should I put my card out? Like, or is that like kind of like too much of a ballsy move? But also like if I don't offer, I feel like that's kind of weird too. I guess like anytime I would go on dates, like I wouldn't expect them to pay. Like in my mind, like I was paying, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't like be like, oh no, bro, I got it. Right. So
Well, good thing you're in a happy and healthy relationship right now where you don't got to deal with that shit
that
anymore.
is true. That is true.
But I know you're short on time. I know you have a busy schedule ahead of you, so it was really great talking to you, Kayla. We got to have a part two because I have a lot more questions. So next
Yeah.
time we got to have a part two.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem.
All right, Kayla, take care. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure.